All right, hello everybody. Today is going to be a tutorial of how to make a news page at the IDS. As you can see, I have my news page opened up here. This is exactly what it's going to look like when you open up your page template from the server. You can see we have a blank page, and then at the bottom here, there's a gray box which indicates an ad is going to be here. So this is the starting point. This is the blank canvas that we're going to be working with. One of the first things I do when I start designing a page is open up the print budget. Um, and this is where all of the stories are going to be stored. And these are the stories that you're going to be able to use on your page. So the print budget is a very important document. Um, so I'm just going to be demoing this old page from the December print budget. But I'm going to be using the styles and we've made a few changes in the spring, so I'm going to be using the spring process, but I'll be demoing this old December page for you guys. All right, so as you can see on the print budget, everything is highlighted green. Typically, when you open up the print budget, it might not all be green because that means everything's been published. For the news page, I would say usually the middle of Tuesday or maybe early Tuesday evening is when everything's going to be finished. So you might have to wait a bit to be able to finalize your page. So it might look like this. This means that the story has been written, but it's not finalized. So you can put it on the page and design it, but you have to make sure to replace it before you finish up the page. So we'll just pretend that all the stories have been published, and we're going to go ahead and get started on the page. Um, so typically when we put stories on print budget, you are supposed to start from the top, which is usually the most recent story. You can see these stories are all from December 7th, and then the bottom one is from December 4th, so it's the least relevant to when the paper is going to come out, which is going to be in a few days. Oops. So we'll go ahead and start by putting the first story in. The way that we get the story, copy this, it's called a slug. And then we'll go into our CEO, search the slug in the search bar, and then this will pop up. So this is the story itself, and this is the image that goes with the story. So we'll go ahead and click on the story, and there's all this stuff going on. This is all of the stuff that you'll need to put on the page. So let's go ahead and get started putting it on the page. When I design, I like to put all the stuff on the page before I start actually designing it so I can kind of think through how big I'm going to make each thing and make sure that it ends up lining up well. So we'll go ahead and do that for all the stories. So the first thing we're going to do, copy this headline. It's under title in CEO. I'll just make a new text box for this. Copy that in. That's the headline of the first story. Then we'll go ahead and copy the actual story itself. And then make another text box for this. And then another thing we have to do is copy the name of the author, which is right here. So copy this story. And then we will put it right above the story in the text box. We'll put the word by first because it's by this person. And then on the second row, we'll have to find her email and Twitter. So how we're going to do that is we will find the staff list. The print budget and the staff list are both linked in Notion, so you can quickly access them, but I'll just find it by searching Fall 2020 staff list. You guys will actually be using the Spring 2021 staff list, which is here. But I'll just go ahead and use this one. So this is a news story. I'll be looking at the news tab, and then I'll find Luzane's name, and then we can see her email is here, and her Twitter is here. So we'll copy and paste those both in. and we'll put this long bar between them. So that is most of the copy we'll need for the story. The next thing that I do is I go ahead and download the photo. So um, when you click on the photo, you'll see this different whole page in CEO, and it's very important to make sure that you click this original button. So click original, it'll load up the largest, highest quality version of the photo, and then you can save it. I'll just go ahead and save it on my desktop. I'll create a folder that says news page, and then I'll rename it because just for easier access, I'll just rename it, what is this story? IU experts, I'll just name it that. And then close out of this window. Now I'll go ahead and place the IU experts photo on here. So using F shortcut, create this frame. And then we can place IU experts. And now I'll go ahead and grab the caption. So here is the caption, copy this, and then I'll place it down here. And then we have to also put the photographer. So this is a screenshot, so it was taken also by the reporter, but we'll go ahead and also put photo by her name, and then long bar, and then IDS. All right, so this is all of the copy we need for this story. As you can see, it's looking pretty bad. It all has the generic Adobe font, and it's not really designed on the page at all, but that's just the process that I like to go through for putting the story on the page. Now I'll go ahead and go in and put the correct fonts. So the way that I'm going to do that is by using the paragraph styles window. If you don't have this over here, you can go ahead and go up to window and then go to, oh, where is it? Styles, and then click paragraph styles, and it'll show up over here. So the first story on our page always has this first headline style, which is boomer headline, which I will click. And even though it gets cut off, that's okay, we can deal with it later. So now we can go ahead and do the byline. So here's byline. This Twitter and email stuff will be in the sub byline style. And then I'll put a return. And then the whole rest of this is going to be in the body copy style. It's very important that we use the paragraph styles when we're putting the fonts in, because when you're putting the fonts in, the paragraph styles isn't just styling the font and the size, it's also styling a lot of different subtle properties that we need to have, such as this property, which makes all of the different text boxes have the lines line up. And then also it styles the kerning and just a lot of things that we need to have. So just make sure that you're using the paragraph styles. It should always have the same paragraph styles if you're downloading your page from the server, so all the fonts will be available to you. All right, now we can go ahead and do the photo. So I'll go ahead and highlight the caption, go to photo caption, and then this part will be photo credit. And then we always go ahead and bold this IDS in here. So that's all styled correctly now. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and pause the video as I go through and do that same process for all of the other stories that are gonna go on the page. All right, so now I've got all the stories laid out on here just like I did for the first one. So now we can go ahead and get started. Also, one thing I realized, we don't actually put photo by on here, so it should just be the photographer's name and then IDS, so that was a mistake I made earlier. A couple more things I wanted to point out. Often the photos will say courtesy photo. In that case, you can just put courtesy photo. You don't need to worry about putting any type of long bar or anything. And then another thing, this story is a brief. Um, Briefs are just really short, obviously, and they often run with our news filler. So let me show you the news filler. It is a photo that we use every time, and it just says news. So we don't really want to print that. People know that this is a news page already. It says news at the top, and it also says IDS at the top, so we don't really need to use this photo. So if this is ever attached to a story you're supposed to put on a page, don't run it, just run it without a photo. So as you can see, I don't have a photo for this one. Um, and then another thing I wanted to point out, so this font is Boomer. This is the font that we use for the quote-unquote biggest story on the page. This is Chronicle. You can get this in the paragraph styles. It's in headlines and it's called a Chronicle headline. So that is what we're going to use for the rest of them, and then we're going to go through later and change the different font weights so we can also make these slightly varied in how they're appearing. Um, all right, so I think we can go ahead and start laying out this page. Oh, one more thing. In some of the stories, you can notice that there are these embedded things, um, these things. So this is basically just putting a related tag, which is good for online, but we don't need that in print. We don't need this code in print. So whenever that's in the story, just make sure that you don't copy that part over so we can see that this code got in here. So we need to delete it before we move forward. And then I think I saw another one over here. So just be paying attention to those things. You can either do what I'm doing or you can just not copy it in initially when you're putting the story in. All right, so it's looking like given all of these stories, we may or may not be able to fit all of them on the page. So again, looking at this list, if we do have to cut a story, we should probably cut this one because it's the oldest. So I'll go ahead and put this one to the side and we'll see if we need it. And now I'll just go ahead and go through, see how long each of these are. That one's pretty long. That one's pretty long too. And that one is also pretty long. So I'm still not sure, but probably won't be needing this. All right, so as we're going through and designing this page, you can see that there's a 6-column grid behind it. So for news pages and all other internal pages, we do always use a 6-column grid. The exception being the first page of the paper and the front, which sometimes you can do different numbers of columns just because that makes it easier to do some more creative designs. But for the news page, we really just want to keep it cut and dry. We want it to be just giving people the straight news, so we're going to keep it 6 columns. All right, so we can just make this one, what should we do? We can probably make this one the full 6 columns. So we'll go ahead and make it reach across the entire page. You can see the headline is far too long. In our design style, if your story is 6 columns wide, you can only have one line of the headline. So we can go ahead and just keep that here for now, and we can go through and fix it later. But make sure when you're designing that you account for the fact that it's only going to be one line. So now we can fit our story in there. When you're aligning the stories and the headlines, some headlines will have these letters that have descenders on them, which means that, as you can see, there's the baseline of most of the letters, and then some letters that go lower have these things called descenders. So if there are descenders, you want to align to those, not to this. So we're going to make sure to align to that. And the headline is lining up with this blue line, which will be on your template. And then the story should be P10 away from the headline, which you can do P10 by doing shift down arrow, or you can also do 10 arrows. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's the same thing. And now we have our story placed the right distance away, and we'll go ahead and make it the right width. And now we have to make it have columns. As you can see, it's very long, and this line is way too long to be legible. So we're going to make it 6 columns, and the way we do that, we don't make multiple text boxes and link them. We actually use this method, which is up here, and it just automatically creates new columns for you. So we want 6, so I'll bump it up to 6. And then this option right below that option sets the width of the space between the columns, and that should be set at 0.1667. And if it's not, you should set it at this because this is the width that we always use. Okay, so now that we have this, a really nice thing about using this method of making columns is you can automatically resize it to be distributed evenly by double clicking this box. So now we have that, and we can probably go ahead and use this photo. So to add in the photo, I'll plan to put it right here. So I'll pull this down again, and then put the photo here, and then I'll align it to be the same width as 2 columns. And as you can see, since we're using that method of making columns, they don't exactly align to the back grid. That's okay. The back grid is really just for reference, and you don't have to worry about exactly aligning to it. But just make sure when you're adding in photos, you're aligning to the text, not to the back grid. So there we go. And I'll resize it to be that. All right, let's go ahead and try to fit all the people. Get rid of the black background. All right. So now we have to add a text wrap so that it will push the text down and it won't be covering any text. So text wrap is over here. If you don't have text wrap, you can always go up to the window and add it. And then we're going to add a square text wrap around it, and then I'll push this, unlink that. I'll push the bottom text wrap to 0.125 inches, and then actually let me undo that because we're going to put the caption below it and we don't want to text wrap the caption. So let's move the caption over here. When you're designing at the IDS, almost everything is P10 away, like I explained earlier, but the one exception is captions, which are only 3 points away from photos. So when you're putting in the caption, make sure you just do 3 arrow keys away from the photo, and that's how we do it. All right, now I'll make this the same length. Go ahead and resize the bounding box so it's exactly right, and then I'll add a text wrap on this, and that will text wrap this. So then we'll go ahead and add the bottom text wrap to the caption rather than the photo. And as you can see, even though I've added this text wrap, which is a P10 text wrap, there's a bit of space below still because the text is formatted to align up with the other lines across it, so it's not going to move up. So the way we fix that, here, let me go down instead. I'll nudge this down until it's right next to the text. You can see it's literally almost touching it. So if we move it down one, it'll move down one line. We just go ahead and leave it like this. And that's the spacing we want between the caption and the text. And now that we have that, we'll go ahead and realign the photo to the caption. So bump this down until it's touching, and then move it up 3, 1, 2, 3. So now we have that, and then we can pull this up to resize it slightly, and then move this up a little bit. And then now we have this right distance, which is 3 points, and then this distance is 10 points. So these distances are all correct. Now that we have the photo in place and the text flowing around it, we can resize the text again. And then that is our first story. packaged in a rectangle. So there's still a few things we're going to have to fix on it. As you can see, the last line, there's 2 empty lines below, and we want it to line up, so we're going to have to fix that in a bit, but it's looking pretty good so far. All right, so now that we have our first story in place, we can move on to the next ones. Before we do that, we can make this 0.25 width line. We always use the 0.25 point line to separate every story. So we'll put this below this story, and it should also be P10 away. So shift arrow key down, and then we can make it the same length as the story. All right, so now we can go ahead and place the second story. I'm actually probably gonna start by doing this bottom story just because this ad it can be challenging to design around, and I want to make sure that I have a good plan for that. So let's go ahead and see if we can make this brief fit in this small space next to the ad. So I'll make it 4 columns. It's looking like it could fit. It might be too short. So let's make this 4 columns. Push it down. Yeah, that's definitely going to be too short. All right, well, so yeah, since this is 4 columns, we also need to have it be only 1 line of headline, so that's why it won't fit. There's a big empty space, so we're not going to be able to put that one there. So I think what we're going to have to do instead is put 2 stories here, and then 1 story in this 2 column space above the ad. So it's looking like this one will probably fit best above the brief, and then this one hopefully will fit over here in the 2 column space. This is where it gets kind of a bit tricky, and you just have to really think of a plan, but don't be too attached to it because you might have to change it. All right, let's see how tall this is. Oh boy, it is way too long. All right, well, I'm gonna have to redo what I did at the top because it looks like this is a pretty good length to be this whole 2 column area, including the part that we used for the top story. So let me just reformat this as a 4 column story. It won't be too hard. We'll just move this over so it's 4 columns, 4 column width, and then we will make it 4 instead of 6, and then realign this photo and caption to be the right width, and then resize this to be there. So now we've made it a 4 column story pretty quickly. Wasn't too hard. Oh yeah, and then we have to make it the proper length. Okay, so now we have to add a horizontal line, or no, a vertical line to the right of this story to separate it from the story that's going to go there. So P10 away, and then we will move that down. All right, let me see actually. So yeah, that's P10 away from this. Actually, it's slightly not. We want to make sure that, actually, let's move this over P10, and then the vertical line can just come up next to the ad instead of going all the way down next to the ad. The ad can serve as our horizontal line. All right, so now we can move this over and then realign these to this horizontal line. You just always have to make sure everything is 10 points away from everything else. So now that's good. We can quickly redo this again. And then also, don't forget to redo the photo. So we'll go right there. All right, so now we have these two getting closer. So we can move this line all the way down. And now we can make this 2 columns instead of 1. And then align this to the bottom of this. Sometimes because of the way the text is formatted, you won't be able to exactly align the text to this blue guide that is here, but just make it as close as possible, and then make sure to align everything to the text. So yeah, now we can put this headline up here. Since this is a 2-column story, the headline can be 3 columns because we always have it add up to 5. So 2 columns, 3 lines, that's 5. So 3 lines is what we're gonna get. So we have this tiny space. We can probably fill that by adding in this photo and just making it really small. So I'll move this up to where it's actually gonna be. Oh. There we go. So it will be here. And then we can pull this down to where it's gonna be. And then we'll have this amount of space to add in the photo. It's gonna be really small, and honestly, this isn't the best use of the photo. I would be happier about this if it wasn't a screenshot, but we will just have to work with it and see. Maybe we can just show the photo from the screenshot. I'm not sure yet. And add the text wrap. And then we can add the caption. 3 points down. Get the right size, and then add text wrap. All right, let's see how good we are in the bottom. Oh, that's pretty close. All right, so we can do that trick again of making this line up exactly. 1, 2, 3, move it up. All right, another trick you can do when you're designing, if you do Command 1, it'll make the page actual size. So this is the actual size it's going to be when someone picks it up and holds it in their hands. So this photo is very, very small. It is not going to be the most informative photo, but honestly, I think it's fine. It's basically just showing them the Facebook page of this group, so it doesn't really have to be too big, so we can just go ahead and leave it. All right, so now we have these 2 stories done, and we can move on to filling in this space here. All right, so put this horizontal line back in, P10 away. Now we can add in the Elizabeth Warren story. All right, so the headline first. Again, since it's 4 columns, the headline can only be 1 line, so we will make it 1 line, and then add in the story. P10 away, make the story 4 columns, and then add in the photo. How do I want this photo to be? So, got a few options here. The main leeway you have when you're designing as far as spacing is the sizing of the photos, because the text is only really one size. You can make small adjustments to it, but the main way you're going to be able to be flexible on your design is by manipulating the size of the photos. So looking at what I've got here, I have 3 stories left. This one is probably going to be too long, since I want to prioritize this one. So gonna have to make this package a bit bigger so that this one, because as we saw, it was really small, it's gonna be like this big. So we want this one to extend to like here-ish. Let me just put this back in and then we can know exactly how much space we have, because I would like to keep that where we had it before. So yeah. So let's just see, I'll pull this line, copy of this line down. Let's just see how big we can make the photo. At this point, we have everything in place. The only thing we have to do is just add in this photo and see how big it has to be to fill this remaining space. Maybe 3 columns, I'm gonna guess. Yeah, that's pretty close. Now add the caption. 1, 2, 3, text wrap. All right, so there's some extra text. A way to see how much text is left, you can just click on this red arrow or plus thing and then click over here. So we have about just a few lines. So maybe if we just bump this up 1 pica or a P10. Yeah, that's pretty close. All right, so we can make sure this is aligned with the text. One, two, three. Make this the right size. Make sure, let's pull this bit this way. Get her more zoomed in and in the center. Yeah. Okay, so we have our whole page laid out, and the only things we have left to do are just touching it up. I'll go ahead and delete this extra story because we ended up not needing to use it. So yeah, let's go through now and make sure all the alignment is right. So as you can see, we do have these empty lines. This one has 1 empty line. Oh wait. Looks like this last part is cut off. Let me check back in the original story for this. It looks like just the last phrase got cut off, so let me just replace this last paragraph. There we go. Alright, so there's still 1 line missing here. This one has a few lines too many, and this one is missing 3 lines. So the way we're going to fix that is by kerning. Kerning is this thing here. It has a VA and then this arrow. You can see our body copy style is set at -10 kerning, and we are allowed to kern from -25 to 5. So you can go as low as -25, you can go as high as 5, but you can't go outside of that range. So the way I approach it, we can see that we need 2 lines here, so I'm going to go through and look for some paragraphs that are pretty close to spilling over onto the next line. This one looks like it might go over to the next line, so let's bump it up. Okay, so it did, it added a line, now we only have 1 left. Let's see, sometimes longer paragraphs will spill over even if they don't, the last line doesn't look like it will. Let's see about, what about this one? Go to 5. That worked. I don't really like how this single word is floating on this line now, so I'm gonna try and look for a better option. No. Another approach to this is just changing the kerning of the entire story. I prefer this approach personally, but You can also do that if you want. All right, so this one with the next line, this word's a bit longer, so I'm not as mad about it. And now we have it all lined up across the bottom, so that's good. Now we can do the same with this story, so we need only one line. Maybe this last paragraph. Yep, there we go. So for this one, we can see, if we look at this again, we just have a few lines that we need to get rid of. So this one looks like it could go down. There we go. This one, oh, I don't like that, so we gotta get rid of that. All right, so now we have all the lines on there. And then for this, we just have to add 3. Might actually be kind of hard because this is just so short. So you know what I'm gonna actually do is just get rid of 1. And then we can reset this to be like this, and then we can just bump it down. And then we can resize that Elizabeth Warren photo to fix it. Also, this is close to being like it could have another line. Yeah, so now we have these lines to fill. We can do that by just doing this. Maybe one more. Yes, that will work. So this will be the height we want now. And then we can start by just resetting all this to 10 again. -10. See how many lines there are again. Only 1. Get rid of this one. There we go. All right, so now we have properly kerned all of our stories. All of the lines are lining up correctly. And I think the final thing we have to do on this page is address all the headlines, which are all too long. So, as designers, we don't really know that much about writing headlines. We aren't really trained in writing headlines, so it's best to just ask the editor or writer to shorten it for you. So you can always Slack them. The editors are listed at the top of the page, so you can Slack one of these people and ask them to help you shorten your headlines. You can always also just ask the design editors, and we will help you get in touch with those people. But just for the sake of showing you how it works, I'll go ahead and shorten these myself. But just know that when you're actually designing, you will be not doing it yourself. You can do it yourself, but you always just need to get it approved before you submit it. So let's see what this headline is. This is going to be pretty hard to shorten. There's a lot of long words that we're going to have to get rid of. I think we can maybe just say panel of experts discuss Biden. That is a really bad headline, but honestly, I don't want to spend too much time workshopping it because I don't want to make this video super long, so I'm just gonna leave it for now. And then if I actually put this on the page, I would make sure to ask the editor for more help because that is a terrible headline. Anyway, we can take a look at this one. Bloomington Homeless Coalition strives to help the unhoused population. Maybe we can just say Homeless Coalition helps unhoused locals. That's pretty bad as well, but sometimes you do have to make cuts to words like Bloomington, which most people assume that it is in Bloomington because it's the local paper of Bloomington. While it does make sense to put Bloomington in the headline online because it will make it easier for people to search up stories for SEO, and it'll also help people know what community we're writing about if they randomly come across an IDS article. In the local paper, which only comes out in Bloomington, it's not as necessary to put all of those words. So it's fine to cut those. Just, again, make sure you approve it. All right. Senator Elizabeth Warren discusses student debt relief plan, federal support at Roundtable Monday. Oh, one more thing I was going to mention. Often stories will be written about an event that happens either right before or right after the paper comes out. So in those cases, you want to make sure. So for example, this one, Monroe County School Corporation to move into phase red Wednesday. This story is about something happening on Wednesday, but our paper publishes on Thursday. So this will have been happening yesterday when it comes out. So you always have to think as if you're in the time of Thursday when you're designing, because that's what people are going to be when they read it on the day it comes out. So for this headline, first of all, we can just make this an abbreviation, MCCSC, because everyone in the community knows what that is. And then we can change this to moves. We still want to keep it in present tense just because that's how headlines are written, even if it did happen in the past. As you can see before, it said to move, which is the way that you say future or present things, I guess, in headlines. So MCCSC moves into phase red. That honestly is a pretty good headline. The only thing is it's too short. We want it to be pretty close to the actual length of this text box. So let's take a look at the story. New York County, which phase red on Wednesday, blah, blah, blah. Students were asked. Students will continue virtually for remainder of the year. Maybe we can say moves into virtual phase red. Moves to virtual phase red, and then we can bump the kerning down. So yeah, maybe this headline is better, but again, yeah, I would have to approve it, blah, blah, blah. So we can put this in. I'm not going to shorten this just because it's going to take too much time, but that's the same process you would go through with this one. And voila, we have our finished page. Oh yeah, one last thing. So as I mentioned before, we have this headline is for the one story on the page, which is like at the top. The next one, so basically our headline structure just moves down the page. So the first one is Boomer. The second one is Chronicle, bold. The third one is Chronicle, semi-bold. And the last one is Chronicle, Roman. So I can bump this back up, maybe up a little bit more to get it to be the right length. So yeah, you always want to make sure that you don't forget to change the font weight on these three headlines because it just looks nicer to have a slight variation, and also it shows people that some stories are like more important because it's bold or a different font, but that's just how our style works. So yeah, this is our completed news page. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope it helped you. Oh gosh, that thing is so annoying. I hope it helped you to understand how you should approach designing the page, and especially how you should approach alignment and how you can wrap your head around laying out the page and making sure all of the words and photos fit, and also designing around ads. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I hope you learned something.